Barnes and Leslie. You know, the Foos, Fram, have about 75 Grammys, I believe.
I thought it was 1,000.
Something like that. And Chris Shiflett, guitarist in Foo Fighters, has about 75 jobs. One of those, and there you can hear him laughing.
One might argue too many jobs at the moment.
Yeah, probably people in your life are saying you work too much. Chris, how do you not forget where you are and what you're doing to know which thing you're playing?
You know, it's funny. People ask me that all the time, but it honestly works the other way around.
Really?
It's because I'm like, especially right now with we're in the middle, obviously, of touring the new Foo record, and we're playing a lot. But then I've been sneaking in like solo gigs kind of here and there, when time allows. And so I'm just find myself, and then doing my new podcast guitar show thing. So I'm just like playing all the time. Yeah, you like that? You like that shameless plug?
You slipped it in. That was a sucker punch.
But I really am like playing all the time. So it just kind of makes my guitar muscles stronger, I think.
You've been doing it for a while, though, with your solo stuff, which is great. And before we talk about your new thing, I want to go back to your podcast, because for the longest time, you've had one of the most successful podcasts, kind of dealing with roots and Americana, called Walking the Floor. Where did your love for that music start, Chris?
Well, it's to steal a line from Dave Cobb, I came to it through the side door, because I grew up listening to rock and roll music in all its many forms, but it's hard to exactly pinpoint. I always credit my love of the Rolling Stones as a big influence on in a roundabout way of my love of country music and roots music, because they had so much at certain periods in the Stones, had a lot of sort of country rock flavor in there, and obviously they were kind of a band that grew out of their love of blues and rockabilly and all that stuff. So
exactly.
So that was a big one, and just kind of everything that was in the ether when I was growing up in California in the 70s and 80s. You had all the Eagles and bands like that had a lot of that flavor. And then I just liked old music. I just was always a fan of old music. And but it was really when I was in No Use for a Name in the mid 90s that the singer of No Use for a Name, my buddy Tony Sly, turned me on to a lot of the alt country stuff that was kind of going on at that time. Sun Bolt, old 97s, Uncle Tupelo,
yes.
Just all that stuff.
Love Sun Bolt.
Yeah, I mean, great stuff. And that was the first time I was ever listening to probably current music that had some of those elements of like a pedal steel and a fiddle here and there. Just some of those flavors just kind of made my ear tingle, and it made me want to dive deeper into it.
Talking with Chris Shiflett, of course, from Foo Fighters, has a new album out called Lost at Sea. We played a little clip of that. Really solid album all the way through. I want to rewind in your timeline, because you've been in the Foo Fighters since the late 90s. And
Yep.
before you knew Dave Grohl, what was your take on, meaning just you personally, with Nirvana? Not that you could ever imagine you'd end up being in a band with Dave Grohl, but before you knew Dave, what'd you think of him?
Oh, I mean, I think anybody that's around my age that is a musician or a music fan or whatever, I mean, when Nevermind came out, that was like a game changer, of course,
That was a hairband killer. That was instant. I mean, just...
Yeah, it was like that. The world was kind of moving in that direction, and then that record came out, and it just felt like everything changed. I moved to LA at the beginning of 1990 with my band, and we were here trying to make it, and I grew up going to see bands all the time, big bands, small bands, whatever, club shows like in Los Angeles. But I lived about an hour and a half away, so you didn't really have a sense of exactly what was going on. When I moved here, that scene that I had grown up being around was pretty dead, being a young musician trying to go play in the clubs and everything. It just didn't seem like. It just seemed really pretty beat around that time, I mean, don't get me wrong, I was 18 and I was having a good time and all that sort of stuff. But the LA kind of rock scene was really just, that whole world was shifting, and it sort of hadn't quite landed on whatever it was going to become.
So how'd you get the audition with Grohl for Foo Fighters?
Oh, a friend of mine knew somebody that knew somebody that
That's
was
crazy.
Marginally tied to their camp, and I asked him to get me an audition, and it wasn't like the audition came the next day. It was like 4 months later, I get a call out of the blue from Gus, our tour manager, saying, hey, we're having auditions next week. Do you want to come down and give it a shot?
What'd they have you play?
I remember they sent me a cassette tape, and it was a song off the first record, song off the second record, a song off the Godzilla soundtrack called A320, which I think was like a curveball. And then I want to say it was Aurora from the third record. That record wasn't out yet, so I hadn't heard that, and I hadn't heard that A320 song either. So that was what was on the cassette tape.
That's
I don't
cool.
remember which songs from the first and second record, but yeah, we do have a Gus, our tour manager, videotaped I think all of the auditions. So I should go back and watch that first one and
I'd
see
love
what
to see
songs
that.
we actually played. Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah,
You guys have such a great reputation of how you just treat people. I mean, I've seen so many Foos shows, and obviously you were a big part of 99X's history, and now we're back. I saw you guys play someone's garage in Yonkers, New York.
Oh, you were there?
I was at that. That was a lot of fun. But, again, throughout the history, you were part of, let's face it, the alternative scene in the 90s, and now it's seemingly back. How has it been for you guys playing these new shows? Because you obviously have gone through a lot.
It's just kind of a subject matter I'm trying to sidestep because, I've just over the last little while of putting out music, and every time I open my mouth about anything kind of Foo Fighter related, it gets spliced and diced and
Really?
just like shot
Totally
out
respect
into clickbait. And there's just so much. We live in a strange world of clickbait media that, you say one thing and then you see it like rebounding all over the internet, misquoted and turned into something that was the opposite of what you meant. You know what I mean?
Totally respect that.
You know what I mean? It's a delicate thing.
Well, we do want to ask about Lost at Sea, but you added another thing that you're doing, Shred, with Shifty.
Yeah.
How did that start?
That started because I just, as a guitar player, I watch a lot of people on YouTube explaining how to do different things. If I need to figure out how to play a Ritchie Blackmore guitar solo from a Deep Purple song or something, I kind of have my own little process. Like I'll listen to the song, I'll try to find some video of the person playing the song, and when that fails, or when you don't quite get enough, to figure it out, then I'll just watch a bunch of people on YouTube explain how to do it, and they're always a little bit wrong.
You just set yourself up for the clickbait now. Chris Shiflett, Foo Fighters, YouTube songs before going on stage.
Absolutely. 100%.
Do you know our friend Rick Beato?
I don't know him personally, but I know his show. It's great. Yeah, I just watched his interview.
Yeah, he's a good friend of ours. We kind of broke his band back in the day in Atlanta.
Oh, really?
Called
That
he's
dude
a good guy.
Kills it with that.
Nice, yeah.
The music theory.
His Yngwie Malmsteen interview the other day was fantastic. I don't know if you saw that, but yeah, wonderful.
Fram's a huge Yngwie fan.
Yeah, I just wanted to. It just gives me the show gives me an excuse to go talk to some of my favorite guitar players and try to figure out how they do what they do.
Who did the album art for Lost at Sea? One of the most beautiful images of you jumping up with an acoustic guitar. Obviously, you're not there, but where is that? Do you know where that picture was taken?
Oh yeah, man. I took that picture. My friend Blue I told my friend Blue, who's a photographer, about the sort of the concept for the album cover, and he went, you can't find those boats. Those boats aren't very common, at least not on the West Coast anymore. Like every now and again, like a lifeguard tower has one, sitting in the sand. So he found one down in Orange County, and I drove down there. And we did it, and really the boat was just sitting in the sand. And he just took a bunch of pictures of me jumping out of it, and then I sent it to my friend Jason Noto, who's a graphic designer, and he made it look
great. Looks like
fabulous.
the Caribbean. Very, very cool.
I know, right? Yeah.
Chris, you worked with a lot of my friends in Nashville on this record, Lost at Sea.
Oh yeah.
Jaron Johnson, the whole crew. You want to talk a little bit about making this record?
Yeah, it was an interesting way to make it, and really kind of unlike any other record I've ever made, because we recorded the first couple songs in the spring of 2021, and if you remember, that was like right before touring came back. You know, it's just right before we all started getting back out on the road. So we did those first couple songs, not really even intending to make a full-length record, but I just really liked the way they came out. And then I hit up Jaron and just said, hey, man, we gotta do another 8, you know, and turn this into a full-length. And so I just started, every time I had a little gap in my schedule, I would fly back out to Nashville and over the course of that year or so, and we would record some more stuff, and then we'd tinker with it, and I'd take those files back to LA and I'd add stuff to it and overdub, and Jaron would tinker with it out, you know, at his place, and it took like probably about a year or so, you know, to kind of get everything finished. There would be times where I would go out there and I would record like a bunch of songs over the course of a couple of days with Jaron and the whole crew. And then I'd go right back into doing shows, and it would be like a couple months before I would even be able to get back to it, you know, and you'd almost be like, it would be kind of like a surprise, like, oh, right, we did that. Oh, cool, you know. So it was fun. It was a nice way to do it. You know, it was just, there was no like deadline. We could just tinker until we got it where we wanted it.
But just in case you're wondering, because I'm looking at Foo Fighters dates, people in Atlanta do like Foo Fighters. Just FYI, because I know next summer you have these big shows. So if you decide maybe you all want to come here, we will talk about it. The people will come.
All right.
Well, back in the day, you remember the Foos did a takeover at 99X and just played whatever they wanted. So it's always an open invitation.
Yes.
You know what? If you even go back before all that, I remember the very first. I was in a band called No Use for a Name before I was in the Foo Fighters, right? And the very first No Use for a Name show I ever did was a 99X show at the
Masquerade.
At the Masquerade.
I remember it.
Do you really?
I absolutely, because I know the name is so familiar. I remember that gig.
Yeah, it was like that was like in the first half of 1995. Because I'll never forget, I joined the band. It was pretty much the exact same situation as when I joined the Foo Fighters, just on a smaller level, because I joined a band with a bunch of people I didn't know, had to learn a bunch of songs real fast, and just get in the van, and we drove from the Bay Area out to Atlanta for that first gig. And I remember we'd just be driving down the road, and me and Tony would be reviewing the songs on his acoustic guitar and just trying to get the set together. And that was the first one.
We need a solo show in Atlanta, so let us know when Chris Shiflett's coming to Atlanta solo.
All right, man, set it up. I'll come.
He'll pick up 14 other jobs. Probably be playing Major League Baseball by the time he comes back in town. All right, Chris Shiflett.
More likely soccer.
Okay, soccer.
But, you know,
well,
I take your point.
We'll get you on the team. Lost at Sea is the new record. Chris Shiflett from Foo Fighters. This is 99X. Chris, we'll see you later.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, thanks for having me, guys.
The Morning X with Barnes and Leslie. 99.